Okay, welcome all to the April 20th, 2022 meeting of the Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners. At 6:30, let's open our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have the minutes of the April 6th meeting.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes of April 6th.
Okay.
Second.
The motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Okay. Seasonal employee. Where are we with that?
I'm gonna drop a template the same way they commonly do with the town anyway, so there's a, the only discussion is about the rate, they wanna pay them. I'm gonna vary from 16 up to 18, up to 20 something or whatever. I can take it from when the highway hired their guy for, they had a temporary for a while. And, but kinda wanna get an idea where you wanna pay them too for a salary, be what, 21 hours, somewhere in there?
It's gotta be 20 or less.
19.
So 19.
Is it 19?
19, yeah, it's gotta be less than 20,
Yeah.
otherwise they qualify.
So he
for
wouldn't have any
raise.
benefits or anything like that. He'd be strictly a laborer, worker. He would be, the other issue would be also to call him in on main breaks.
Could be she.
But or she. Which you'd have to pay him a straight rate on that.
Just to clarify one thing on the seasonal, so you're saying seasonal, do you mean part-time or do you mean seasonal? Because if you're...
That's the other thing. We could use them throughout the fall with what's coming up now. I mean, it really wouldn't be season would be more like a summertime, and you know,
Right,
then you
but
get the winter.
if you're trying to keep them year-round, you have to keep it under 20. If it's only through the summer, the 20 isn't actually the magic number, it's the 1,000...
Total number of,
It's 1,040 or 1,080, whatever that number is that totals it. So they can work 40 hours a week if it's only for, you know,
certain number of
6
weeks.
months or less.
Yeah. I'd like to go further in more than just a part-time worker, because we got a lot of stuff coming up, and it's just not going to entail mowing lawns and stuff. It could help out with flyers and help out with other jobs that we have to take a guy off to do. That we have, you know, cleaning vehicles, cleaning the garage,
Plowing out
painting.
stations, or
You know, right now I plan on painting the garage before it gets any worse again. I did it a couple of years back, but you know the sun beats on it directly, so trying to keep that refreshed and so the wood stays good. Stations have already been started, but unfortunately I have to pull him off constantly to you know, we've had issues with the
Seasonal, George, how many months are you thinking?
I'd probably give them a break in the wintertime and keep them to the fall and the springtime and summer, and negate the winter. Sometime we make sometime come the end of Thanksgiving, he'd be let, you know,
Thanksgiving
to start again sometime in the springtime, probably just after March or something like that, the end of March. But it would be
Yeah, so in other words, this is not a short-term employee for 3 months. This person could understand that possibly it
You're
could
looking
carry
at
over into
more
the
like
following
9 months,
year.
8 or 9 months.
Well, call next year he has a job also. You might be, would he be entitled to unemployment benefits if you,
No.
you know?
no, that's why you keep it under the 1,040.
It'd be more for those people who are retired or
Yeah, it's a
you
good
know,
idea.
part-time.
It's
So in essence, what you're saying then is we originally came up as a seasonal employee, may very well be changing it to a part-time
Subject to
employee.
change at a future time. If things are caught up or something like that, we may say no, not so much. Just keep it seasonal, like summertime. But right now, especially with the treatment center going up and everything else, it's
Now, the manpower you have now, you're not full though, right?
no. Well, the manpower I have now has been subject to injuries and time offs and
But
things like
number
that.
of people you have.
I'm always been down a guy.
Right, so-
Yes. So,
You don't think we should just fill that one position and,
I think as we go along, we're gonna look at that further on, but right now, I just need this guy, because right now, that guy, whoever comes into that position, is gonna be doing the same basic stuff this guy's gonna be doing, because I need somebody to do that kind of work right now. We're just, even I myself, unfortunately, had to get on a lawnmower and cut grass or do, because I just don't have, I
That
just
killed
don't.
you.
Yeah, well, it's a good way to think of them a little bit, but, you know, things like that, or clean or wash vehicles, you know, I try to maintain a schedule of keeping everything, you know, we're just falling more behind, and this could be a great help to us and keep our costs a little bit down while we struggle through all this stuff and help us, maintain things at the shop.
Mr. Chairman, on that subject, it's a good idea if you can retain this person, because you'll be teaching him something, and it'll be more valuable the following season. But on the topic of a full-time employee, how would you dismiss this person if you were looking to bring on a
Well, as
new
I
full-time?
talked, as we had talked about this, it's become imperative right now. I need somebody who is licensed to come in. We did this at the last employee hiring. It took about 6 months or so for him to get his treatment license, which is great. But now with the treatment plant and everything like that, it's become to the point where any new hires we kept down the line have to come in with licenses, or one of the licenses at least, to start off, so they can at least help on the weekends or run the pumps or things like, you know, at least fill the chemicals without having to, you know, have somebody else with them totally.
I think what Jay was saying is, when you get this new person on, you're just gonna dismiss this seasonal help?
No, I think this is actually gonna be we'll move into the summertime anyway, because we're gonna need that anyway in the summertime. We explode at the spring, summer time frames, and we're still gonna have these other the main project's gonna be coming up next year. Station 1, all that is gonna be a major problem, and guys are gonna be scattered all over the place, and the treatment center's gonna be going on. So he's gonna, of course, be needed anyway. It's right now. At least I want to start getting us caught up as we are right now. Get some major projects done that we like, in-house projects, not just because of the new stuff. You know, maintain our old stuff. But like you said, subject to change at a future time, either back to seasonal or whatever we deem at the time. And I just want to know what you might want to pay. What we're looking at to pay this person.
As little as possible.
But, you know, when we talked about this 2 weeks ago, I said, yeah, minimum wage, you know, somewhere in that range, 15. I don't know if people want to pay a little more than.
I'd like to shoot for 18 at least.
I can agree with something like George is talking about, because the person is around equipment, machinery, utilities. You gotta have your head on your shoulders.
Yeah, just
You
by
know,
paying them more doesn't mean
Well,
you
you know,
get that
hopefully you
guy,
get that
that kind of guy working in.
responsible type person, you know? There is a liability there.
There is, but
in the
just
environment
because
he's
you're paying
in.
somebody more
Yeah.
doesn't mean you get the reliable person.
I think the bigger point with paying more money is that you have a better chance at retaining someone if you have a decent employee.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that I think you need to get the full staff, and I think it's a good idea to have someone do, I mean, why pay someone full benefits, the salaries you're paying operators to cut grass and wash trucks, and,
Right.
I think there's a lot of things that we still need to improve upon in the department, valve exercising, I mean, there's a lot of work for
Perfect
your
type of
regular.
work. Yeah.
For your regular operators, and then they can sometimes use a hand that you don't need to take away a full operator that
That's correct.
can work on
At
it.
least one worker and an operator would be able to do something and free up another guy, which is
Pair
really
of hands. Does the personnel board have to be involved with this?
There is no personnel board.
That's not active any longer?
Nope.
Oh, once we did all the job qualifications?
Yeah.
town administrator would assume just.
What do we have for, the
Funds.
question was asked about budget availability.
We
We
got
have a
all the
line
money
item
on
that
the
can be paid out
position
of.
that's unfilled.
I think last
Yeah,
time we
there's like a
just-
differential line item, and we're
Well, I think-
looking at that just to finish off. If we hire him now or within the next month or so, it'll just get us through, and then we'll be okay for next year. I think we'll be
Saying we
okay.
had
So, Mr. Chairman, I think last time we discussed it, you had budgeted for your other staff person that
Yeah.
wasn't filled.
Yeah, and then we had another pay line item for differential we were looking at, and that was
Okay,
also
all right, so there is
There-
room in the
there's-
budget.
There's room in the budget.
So what's,
How would you advertise?
Same way we do for anybody else that they're hiring, even if it was a union person or anything like, except no union, it's not a union job. So, I would actually let the union know what our intent was, town administrator know what the intent was. And like I say, they do it all, had done it in the previous, when they did, part-timer for here. I think Brian was the part-timer at the time.
Do you have a job description?
I'm making one up now,
Okay.
yeah.
okay,
So how do you want that position worded? I mean, do we wanna, are we voting to authorize a seasonal or temporary or permanent part-time, or,
you call it a part-time seasonal position.
or do you want
Or-
to word it as, we authorize a
Start out as seasonal, and if it turns out to work out and there
Yeah,
seems to be enough
You could
workload,
say
we could change it later.
part-time employee, in the thing you can verse it as you go along. Plan to start off summertime months, may add on future for spring.
If you have to say.
I don't wanna
not
word it to
exceed.
limit you, that's why I'm trying to get at is, do we just word it that we authorize to hire an employee for up to 1,020 hours a year?
Whatever.
And he
Yeah.
can decide on his own as to
Yeah.
whether it's
Yeah, because
more beneficial to hire someone 40 hours a week for the summer or 20 hours a week year round.
the language can
Yeah.
skew you how you
That's what I
hire
mean,
this
so-
person, so maybe that's a good idea.
That is a good
Not-
idea, just to
not
make it a
exceed
general-
1,000 hours a year, is that whatever the max is, so you don't fall?
Yeah, I think it's 1,040.
1,040,
So-
1,000.
Not to exceed 1,040 hours a year and get rid of
Pay
seasonal
rate will be
or part-time.
18, maybe,
An understanding of what the position is.
1,040 is 20 hours times 52 weeks.
Yeah,
What
It's gotta
about,
be under
then you
20.
have to figure benefits,
It's gotta be under that.
it cannot exceed 1,040, yeah.
not to exceed, even if you
Yeah,
put it,
so-
not to exceed 1,000
Yeah,
hours
I mean,
a
so what do
year.
we wanna talk about for salary? I mean, that's,
I would recommend 18, that's my recommendation, at least 18. Maybe, later on, if he's still on, maybe we can bump it up a little bit with the board's permission to go.
So I mean, my view on that is, if you're hiring them to try to retain an employee and potentially train them or have them work on getting their license, and then they could move into a full-time position, you might wanna be a little more on the high side, but if it's just
just a labor.
strictly just gonna cut grass and paint stuff, I'd probably go on a lower
Why,
side.
why not give him a step increase if he gets a license? Start him at
We
18,
could put an incentive in there, maybe.
he
to
gets
say
a
if-
license,
if-
give him a step increase.
Could be a semi-retired person.
It could, yeah, you get an older
You know,
person, it's not
Older
gonna,
semi-retired person that's just there to,
Yeah, I like the idea of keeping it at a certain number, and if you wanna put something in there, if he's willing to get a license, we can bump it up, cause we'll get more.
A time when a
It's a
more
part-
permanent
yeah,
position is
well,
coming on
But
board.
that,
are we,
it's
so are
good
we,
encouragement for them to improve.
are we talking about a seasonal job or a part-time job? So that's the first
Part-time
question.
job right now is the way we're
So
seeming to be
I
going.
think I would list it as part-time.
Okay.
And part-time could either be,
not to exceed
Right,
the
it's-
1,000 hours,
1,040.
40 hours a year.
you might wanna
Okay.
go a little conservative and say 1,020, just to give yourself
Well,
that.
it's gotta be,
Yeah.
it's gotta stay in the, it's,
Well, the reason I say give yourself the buffer, cause the intent would be the 1,020 or whatever, but if there's an instance where you have an emergency and you pull them in for more hours than they're scheduled, you wanna give yourself a little bit of room, but make sure you don't exceed the
I think
1,040.
1,000 is fine.
Yeah, that gives you a
You want
40-hour buffer.
1,000 hours,
Go with
keep it
1,000
straight,
hours,
1,000.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, would you call them in on emergencies?
Well, you gotta be
You'd be
careful there.
careful
because
there.
you'd
I'd have to
be
talk to-
violating the union contract,
Oh.
using a non-union person to do work that could be done by a union person.
Cause I mean, you could bump a lot of hours up there and get them over the 1,040. Now you're in different ballgame.
You're tangling with the union contract at that time,
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any conditions in the contract.
You know what,
that says
I
can't
just
do
off
that.
the
I
cuff,
think
I'll
you-
talk to the union steward
Yeah.
about that.
I
just
think
to
if
see.
there was like if happy guys were out with COVID or whatever, and you needed somebody for emergency, I think, but.
So I think that's one of my concerns, is there's been oftentimes that you're very short-staffed, even though you're already short-staffed, and the people you rely on are either out sick or on vacation, and
I'd still be calling in some, well, you know, like maybe highway or some help out, so, but, you know, I can't see any problem with this guy, as long as somebody, union is called in too, from another department, if it's needed like that, you know.
Right, but if you've got a water break or something and you're out and your operators are in the ditch and you need someone to run back to the shop to grab
Yes, correct.
parts or something, you know, I don't think you
Okay.
need a,
All right, so what's the pleasure? Do we need a motion for this, or we just telling them?
I would think you probably need a motion.
Okay,
Makes a motion, I'll make a motion, we hire a part-time employee, no more than 1,000 hours.
at what rate?
I'll go with his recommendation at 18. With the stipulation if, in the way it's written up, if he gets a license, we'll look at bumping it, because we'll have more.
Again, you may have to look at the union
You have to be
Yeah.
careful.
stuff, because if
Tangle-
if you get someone that's licensed, I think you also have, there's some union issues in there where I think the union,
To hire a full-time
Has-
union
They would have to
personnel,
put
you
their
have to
name
go through
in with the
union.
rest of the union
but I think,
process.
but I think there's stipulations in the town that if you get licenses, you're entitled to certain,
If you're a member, if you're in
I
the
don't think-
department, you have
We
a,
shouldn't get into that at all with a part-time employee.
I'm just saying you need to make sure you cover that. So if you're saying that that the opportunity is there for them to get a license, and the town has a policy that you get a
Yeah,
stipend
No, I
for
wouldn't,
You know
licenses,
what?
you just need to make sure it
You're correct,
qualifies.
just leave that out and just leave it at 1,000
Part-time employee,
hours at
1,000.
18, and next year, if you come back saying he's doing
We can
fantastic
explore it at a
job,
later
we can
date.
look at it, bumping it, if that's needs to be done, to
Okay.
retain.
Yeah, getting way off track now.
Yeah.
All right.
Licenses.
motion's been made, is there a second?
Second.
Second, okay, motion's been made and seconded, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Okay, the pump station change order. I don't know how many people saw the email that went out, the change order for the, they're still pushing around this whole thing with the, sewer line out of the main station. I'm looking at this, you know, it was, you know, it might be $4,000 or $5,000, now it's $32,000. And it's got a whole lot more to it. And the one question I had that came off of this, right off the bat, was, we just spent in the vicinity of $1 million to cut infiltration and inflow from our sewer system. And we're looking at a change order here to tie a sump pump into the sewer system. What's wrong with that picture?
I think it depends on your definition of sump pump, because is this what's the intent of this pump? It's to catch the sinks, and so that's
No,
not, so technically they should have worded it as an injector pump because it can't gravity to the sewer system. But it's something that you probably can't discharge to the ground.
I thought a different resolution was in order with that, but you would know better than me on that.
It's been a while. I think Dan Chris already put a force 2-inch sump pump line in last summer with no concerns of where the water was going from this testing station either. Remember Dan Chris
Yeah,
went
and
all
there
the way
was-
around the building?
Yeah.
And this is all for something that's gonna be very temporary.
And this is, but that's in a wet hole. You are wet down there. You do need a sump pump at the low
Yeah.
level of your,
So that's
pump station.
groundwater.
That's
So that's
groundwater.
groundwater.
So that we do not want going
You
into the
can't
wastewater.
pump, we can't
And
pump.
we can't pump, but we can't pump that out into the well field. It's contamination.
It's
Well, it
groundwater.
depends, is there anything that's contaminated going in there?
No.
So your analyzers are reagentless.
Reagent analyzes, yeah.
So there's
That's
no
what commonly
reagents.
gets,
So
pumped out right now.
You probably need to label the sink as, no, non-potable, you
Yeah.
can't wash your hands.
Can't
and
do
stuff in
anything
there,
that,
so
The eye
You
wash
can't dump
is
anything
tempered
down.
water, so,
Right.
The eye wash is just going on the floor.
Yeah.
We eliminated the drain. It's just because it'll never get used.
yeah, it's
just
only
going
the
on floor.
reagent.
And it's only temporary.
The main thing was how, it's been a while, how are you getting rid of the water that you used to sample? I think that was going into just a sump pump and being pushed out to the sewers.
Yeah, because the same way we have sample sites out on the field where they, you're using the reagents to take your samples, that goes out in dispersals. I mean, it's the same process.
I mean,
So there's no-
why, these, we're going on 2 years now probably with that engineering and blueprint. Why did, Ty and Bond take your sump pump from the back of your building and bring it up all the way around the front to the sewer?
This all started from the plumber that was there and then. I
No, the
guess-
sump pump was put in first before the plumbers even got there.
Some pumps have been there forever.
No, but this started acting up after with the plumber looking at something. And
Oh,
then
yeah,
something
he-
else was looked at and then,
The bottom line is that, and we brought this up in a conversation, the plumber that did the low bid on the job destroyed the engineering facts and said, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, and he purposely probably low bidded it, put the low bid in, figuring he's gonna get his
he's gonna
extras to
change
bring
it,
it up to
yeah.
code. And they know that.
But again, we're talking about pumping a sump pump that's taking in groundwater into the sewer system. I can't do that at my house, how can we get away with doing it
you
here?
can't.
We can't.
I thought this was understood by them, that we were not pumping anything hazardous or anything that would be detrimental, and it would not need to go into the sewer.
By looking at this drawing, the last page of this email, it's coming from the sump pump. Half horsepower submersible sump pump. In the sump hole, that's that same sump hole that has been there since forever, pumping out onto the ground. And you've got the, it looks like they're putting the sink right next to it,
Well, wait a minute,
the sample sink. And
Okay, but-
actually, a sample sink doesn't even have to be a sink, it can be a
Well,
funnel.
that's what was the talk earlier. Originally, it was just a little funnel to put the samples underneath it. Now it's a sink. And right in that corner there, you have an existing sump pump
Right.
that Dankris went all the way around the building last year, before any other trades were on the job, and brought it to the front of the building by your door. Where your door that goes down the steps
Yep.
to get to the lower level, that's where Dankris tied in the existing sump pump last year. The idea of this sump pump for that hand sink is to be pumped up through the building over to the plumbing over here, with just a small line. But there's already a 2-inch line going around the perimeter of the building that Dankris put in a year ago. And that was on a blueprint from Ty and Bond. He did what Ty and Bond drew. I tell you, your bottom line here, those were poor documents, poor bidding documents.
This was explained to me also by the electrician, for the other reasons too, but the documents were horrible, and they actually went off some other ones that were more accurate. So, this falls into play with the same thing this guy was telling me about some other things. So, but
They
this
were
is,
poor documents for bidding, and the licensed trades got on the job, and they said, this will never sail. And that's how it happened.
Okay, so that's, yeah, they're coming right up and then running right across the front of the building
With just a small line.
up to where the line goes out.
And if you look in the front,
and they're constantly going 24/7, so, yeah,
what?
there's
the
a wet
sump-
area there.
It's
Yeah.
that wet.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can't have that go in the sewer.
But you can't have it going into your well field. That's groundwater. Say you had some contamination or spill down in your lower level, and that got pumped out into your well field?
What would spill in there?
I don't know, chemical? You gonna have a day tank?
it's,
Yeah, they shouldn't be.
yeah, it would dilute eventually like it does in regular water.
Well, any of the day tanks or bulk tanks should have secondary
So they
containment.
should have containment.
Yeah, There's no oil in there, there's no,
There's nothing else to,
Yeah, you
there's
should-
nothing else to leak out of there other than
Well, if-
the chemicals we put into the water already.
You just can't take that water and discharge it out the building like a sump pump and onto the ground, because now it's a freezing issue come winter.
Right, you have to go somewhere with it, but
It's
is
gotta
there
go
any
somewhere.
swales or drainage that goes down?
problem
to
is,
the-
that is the swale there, where that building is at the back side, it's the lowest point.
But I mean, is there anything that goes out to like catch basins out on Main Street?
Unless you make a dry well, something that, you know.
Make a
like
dry well, you gotta register it as a underground injection.
That's
point.
the other thing.
Yeah, they're looking for an answer on this thing, and I wasn't willing to give it on my own, besides the fact that I had said, I'm pretty darn sure, that the minutes from the last time this came up, that I said I'd vote no,
Yeah, I'm not,
because I see no reason.
Now, let me ask the board this, what happens when the station becomes inactive for chemicals? Is some still gonna be in place there? It's going somewhere. I mean, right now, we're pumping the way we're pumping outside. Been that way for,
You have to keep that basement dry, because that, like I say, eventually that's gonna be pumping right down the street to the treatment plant. That sump pump is as critical as anything else you have in that building right now, because the water level there in the
We
backyard.
can't pump it into the sewer system. Where can we pump it to?
Well,
either
If it goes out the back of the building, it's a
Well,
go
wait a
on the
minute,
side,
wait a
it's gonna
minute,
go
wait a
on the
minute,
well
wait a
field.
minute, wait a minute. The new treatment plant, that's discharging wastewater into the sewers, I believe. Before you go any further on this, I believe backwash chemicals are going into the sewers at the treatment plant.
that's for PFAS and the media, you know. But this is not going to, this isn't getting that far. This station's gonna be offline for all
no, but
that.
still, your analyzer waste and everything shouldn't be
We
going.
won't be analyzing there,
No, I mean, at,
yeah, over there,
At the
along with
treatment
other
plant.
stuff
I
too.
firmly believe you're talking sump pumps there too, on the new treatment plant.
Yeah, we're
And
pumping it up to
Yeah,
Fairview to actually put a toilet, to actually put bathrooms in.
that's for the bathrooms.
That's
though.
for the
Are
bathrooms.
Is the analyzer water going to the sanitary sewer?
Well, analyzer water might, that's one thing, that's industrial
Well,
water use, that's not groundwater.
I still disagree with that, cause it is groundwater, it's just water that you treated with chlorine and
Sampling
pH
is done
adjustment.
anywhere, everywhere, and it's not been regulated for ground protection as far as what you're using there. I mean, this is just coming up now with all this.
right, so we cannot dump it in the well field, and we cannot put it in the sewer.
Where do we put it?
So,
So either find a place to put it, or we put a tank in, fill the tank and pump out the tank somewhere.
Can't do that. You go broke.
Yeah.
A holding tank. I think you gotta make an exception, cause it's a water treatment plant, if it's gotta go into the sewer, it's gotta go into the sewer. Otherwise, you got $1 million worth of equipment that could be destroyed with,
I mean,
with
you-
water.
yeah,
We don't allow
Flooding.
homeowners to do it, we cannot do it ourselves.
I think.
I think the law says you can't, that's why we had to do the whole I&I thing. I don't know if any, you know, who did this originally come out to? It was myself and Bob. Well, because we asked questions about it. They asked about it during one of the meetings and asked questions.
Is there any type of DEP
Yeah,
template
so-
on that?
So the DEP rules would be that it has to discharge to open air, or you have to get a injection well permit.
I don't see why it can't, you know, we're talking about the wells, we're not shallow wells, we're not using groundwater, we're drilling
So-
down 30 feet.
Well, when you say
Some
open,
pump is taking in groundwater from under the foundation, it's gonna take it and it's gonna dump it back out on the ground again. What's the problem? It came from the
if
ground,
we ran
we're putting it back in
off
the ground again.
outside, left side of the station, off into air, open, I mean, you'd be,
As long as it sees daylight, it's legal to
that,
discharge it that way.
then that's easy, that can be done, because we can run that line off the hill on the opposite
Opposite
side,
side, yeah.
heading off to the woods.
That's
right
what I
off
meant, if you have anything that's heading like towards Main Street, any type of swale or anything over there that you can discharge to, that's,
I could discharge it right into the woods. I mean,
yeah, as long as it goes to open air.
okay, well, that's a whole different matter then. We can easily do that, a lot easier than we can do the other stuff.
That's what the rules are, so.
Yeah, open air is open air. I would investigate that
It's
right
gonna
now.
be- If you're gonna investigate that, you could come up with a way of getting it there so it doesn't freeze. Cause you know, as the pump shuts off, you got the trail water.
Jay, the
That trail
hill,
water.
the green hill in the back, the hill in the back,
Yeah,
right, we dig that right, a crevice right in that, 4 feet down, 4.5 feet down, right out the other side to the woods. Right where the gate is on the left side,
yeah.
right that way, right to the woods. 2-inch, what's that,
Yeah,
2-inch line?
So you can have it buried like 4 feet and then
Yeah.
it just comes poking out of the hill.
Poking
so
out,
that
and you
the-
can aim it however you, right to open air and goodbye Charlie. Nobody goes there, it's not a,
Okay, I mean, I don't,
I'd rec.
32, I mean, this jumped to 32,000, I almost choked. Okay, so, you look into that?
We're no longer change order the way it is.
I won't vote for it.
Okay.
If somebody else makes a motion, you guys can vote for it if you want, I won't.
Jay, would you be good with that?
well, groundwater's got nothing to do with plumbing,
Then that's,
you know, that's,
Right.
groundwater's not plumbing,
that's the way we can go.
you know?
So what about the sampling funnel or whatever?
So as long as they're not dumping the reagents into it, you're fine. So if you're doing daily samples
We
where
could put
you,
a,
well, the way I do it is, I mean, you're only putting a little thing into a 10 mil
Yeah.
vial.
yeah,
So it's 10 mils, I throw it right in the trash can with the paper towels and everything else you're using, and it just dries up in the trash
Yeah,
can.
just get a, 5-gallon bucket or something, container that pour it in, you haul it out once a week or.
You let it evaporate.
Like I said, I throw it in the trash, cause
Yeah,
it dries
that's
up
how-
overnight, I mean,
yeah, we
it's
don't,
10
that's what we
mils.
do anyway. It's
Yeah, you're talking about a little,
it's just a small vial.
it's like testing your pool water. Okay,
So that little hand sink, little funnel thing, you use a chemical.
If they're doing, are you analyzing there though? Are you adding chlorine to the water or anything there? That pump, that station is going, so you're not even doing any analytics there
No.
anyway, so.
So it's
And if there
either,
was some to come, it'd be very minimal.
Yeah, but as far as I
You know.
understood, that pump, that station is raw water and it's getting pumped to
down here.
6.
they're talking about preparing it for temporary, for use. If it stays below 20 parts per trillion and we can pump it into the system, what will have to be tested there?
So are we set up for chemical feed though?
Yes.
We are set
There
up
will
for
be chemical feed to start.
Okay.
And there's a question also of keeping that apparatus in place if there's a failure or something happens to 6. Because it's
As long
already
as you're under 20, then
self-sufficient.
you could activate it and go directly.
Yeah,
into
I
the
have
system, but-
I can go whatever, but,
So
that's
what
the
has
other-
to be
So
done?
then,
If you hang a sink there, would anyone ever go down there and wash their hands?
no.
Because, I mean, if you're washing hands and it's soapy,
Right.
now it's
that's why I
contaminated
said,
water.
you need to put a sign there that says no hand washing,
Yeah,
non-potable
not-
water.
There's no reason to
yeah.
have a sink.
We're probably not even gonna use the thing at all for anything, the way
So
it's
you get
looking.
rid, do we need the sink?
Well, you talked originally about a funnel,
Yeah.
something like that,
Yeah.
just a tap,
Well, if,
tap, right, to draw water.
if you're gonna add chemical, they're gonna require an analyzer, and the analyzer has drain water, so that's
Yeah.
why you have that
As
sink.
long as,
It's to grab samples and to have the analyzer waste go.
but the main purpose is if it gets sent out, like it's into the air, that's, we can do that. And everything else is negated, we don't have to worry about,
So do you need to have, I mean, the pipe's under pressure, anytime you sample, you're gonna have it under pressure, why don't we just tube it up? Feed the lines up into your building, and then you can just have it gravity drain outside, as opposed to having it going into a sump. Bring
Wow, well then.
bring your sample lines up into your building, instead of having them down in the basement. All you need is a 1/4-inch tubing.
yeah, I mean, like I said, right now, I can't even see us doing anything.
Then you dump it right into the bathroom.
We can easily do it
Bathroom
without
or,
even affecting
again-
anything, even if we did do it down there and wait, yeah, I mean, I just don't see the gist of it, at all. But for as far as the sump goes, yes, I agree. I think that's an idea to do that and kick it off the side and now you're in compliance.
Yeah, so even if we do come up with an alternate solution for the sink, or funnel, or whatever they wanna call it.
Let's call it a funnel so we don't get into a plumbing fixture.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Then you open up a
Yeah.
Right.
can of
So-
worms. Call it a funnel,
So if you,
testing funnel.
but if you
If
go
it
to
goes on the
the,
floor, it's fine to go on the floor.
so if you have a testing funnel to direct the water as opposed to a sink or whatever, if it's just for sampling, like I said, there's no reason you can't run either a half-inch copper line or even the 3/8 tubing off of a line up into your building, and then you're not even going into the sump. I mean, you still have the sump issue, like you said, you can't discharge the sump into the sanitary sewer, so that needs to be addressed regardless.
From a sanitation purpose, I know your bathroom and kitchen is a disaster. Like Bob says, can you take that discharge testing line up to where the kitchen sink is? That's a unsanitary condition, and test there? Or do you have to test right off the ductile iron piping right as it's coming into the building?
I mean, it has to be from a sample point before you add chemical, so if you're adding chlorine or
I mean, the raw water
Dioxide.
sample ports are easy, that's nothing there. Those
you
are-
can,
those
you
are the
can run
pumps.
that line up, I mean, your other one is a tap from 100 feet away anyway, so whether the tap from 100 feet comes into there or comes into your other building, it doesn't matter where it's coming in, as long as you have a sample tap 100 feet from where you inject.
Like I said, it's only temporary too, this is, we,
So theoretically, you could put one of those sample stations like you just did over by the PRV vault. You could put one of those out where you used to have your little doghouse or whatever out there, and have your sample station out there to grab your treated water samples. And you just turn it on, it runs on the ground. Grab your sample and shut it off.
That's what that little pipe is on Mason Road?
yes.
The green things,
Yeah,
yeah,
the sample?
it's a sample
Yeah.
station.
Okay, somebody asked me. Somebody who lives down Sawmill Road asked me.
Yeah, but obviously you wouldn't be going outside there in winter to do a sample out there.
Oh, we have to all
Yeah, you
winter
do, yeah,
long,
they have
No,
to,
but even outside like that?
all
Yeah.
winter long, we have all the tanks are.
all your
built separate.
tanks,
Okay.
that sample
Yeah.
station there, but
Yeah.
Well, why can't you eliminate this sample station that's in the building? And like you said, put one of these frost-free sillcocks outside there on the line.
Well, we could definitely do the sample station, and we could go forth and let the engineers know that we're not gonna be using that at all. This is part of the original plan when they did this, now we came into a problem with
Getting
disposal and
rid
stuff
of
in
it,
this.
disposing
So
of
you,
it.
so you can't use a frost-free, because you can't sample from a frost-free because they're vented and
No.
stuff can get in there and get contamination, but the sample station they have over there, there's a tubing that comes off the bottom and you have a little pump that you pump the water out of it so that it gets below the frost line. But it's all contained and there's no vent holes that worms or anything else could get into. So they're specifically designed for sampling. They're not cheap.
Cheaper than 32,000?
Yeah.
Well, the smartest thing is you call it a funnel, a testing funnel that goes into the sump pump and it goes into where you think you can discharge that sump pump in the backyard somewhere. We don't call it a plumbing fixture.
Yeah.
It's an open tap for testing.
So I guess the point is, we're gonna deny approving a change
Okay.
order, and they can come back with a new,
Well, who's gonna do the,
Plan.
who's gonna do the sump pump digging?
If it has to be the contractor, they're gonna, if it's gonna be me, I'll dig it, I mean, it doesn't matter.
Cause I mean, we already spent that
Why
money
does
to
it have
run
to be
that
the
2-inch line around the perimeter of the building.
Why does it have to be a contractor?
Well, they sub out, as being Danquist, they're gonna be the ones, as the general contractor for the job, to either,
But this
have us
is
do
over-
it, or they're gonna do it with a
This
little
is
mini.
over and above the contract.
Well, it's kind of a change order situation, but if you don't wanna even go that route, we can dig it ourselves. It's not
Right.
like it's not a big thing, I know where I know where I wanna put it, how I
Yeah,
wanna put it.
I say we just say no to this and do it ourselves.
Can we?
I was gonna say, it depends on what you end up classifying things, cause you need a licensed plumber, if you're doing any plumbing work.
Yeah, but
but
that's not plumbing.
This
It's
isn't plumbing, this
groundwater.
is,
But
Just taking care of a
If- if-
groundwater sump pump.
I think on a bid job like this, if you took work away from a general contractor, you're gonna find yourself in a world of hurt.
well, sometimes it's a change order and say we're eliminating that
I,
point.
I
and we reduce
would
it
have to
by
make
that.
calls to Faulkner and to Luke,
You're gonna have to run it by Faulkner.
yeah. Actually, here, he's the one to run it by, he's the one that's responsible for
Yeah, I mean, they might not
coming
sign
up with the
off on
option.
this.
I'll put our
theory,
option on the table.
You know,
We'll do it if there's a problem,
Because you
as long
can't
as
put,
there's no,
and you can't put a sump pump into a sanitary sewer,
tell them that, what do we do now?
you know.
okay? Here we go again. All right, indirect costs. We've got 3 pages for the last 3 years of indirects. 2020, 2021, and 2022. Had a couple weeks to look at them. I know I have. I've looked at them over and over again. I originally started making my notes on the 2020 page. But it's still, has anybody had a chance to look at them?
I know we had them last 2 weeks ago, they were available, yeah.
Okay, at least what I looked at, we're paying a portion of the selectmen, for what purpose? We're paying the treasurer and collectors, full salaries, $99,836, times 2, which comes to, let's see, water is 17,000 and 26,000, and sewer is 17,000 and 16,000. So you add those up, that's 26, 36, 43, 53, 60, 70, almost 75,000? $76,000 roughly, of a single $99,000 salary. We're paying more than two-thirds of the treasurer's salary. Treasurer collector, it's one person, but we're getting hit twice. And then also the last line on the above section is personnel board. As I understand it, the personnel board doesn't even exist anymore. But yet we're paying a portion of a $5,000 budget line item. For what purpose? Then down below, treasurer expenses. We're paying a portion of that. Total wages, I'm not sure what total wages is, but, and then, down below, municipal center expenses. How much of the copier and paper do we use down the hall? I know we have one in our office. We do use that a lot, okay. But we've got building operations, we've got Dudley Municipal Complex. I don't know what's the difference between the two of those, but that's a significant chunk of change. We're paying 1.5% of the building expenses. I know 2 years ago, we were paying a portion, the roof repair was figured in as town hall expense. The roof repair was paid by a debt exclusion, which means we all paid for it as taxpayers. Why are we paying for it again as water users and then again as sewer users? But that's in 2020, that's water under the bridge, or through the culvert. That, I brought that up back then, I never got an answer, but, we didn't push it. But I really want to get some, better oversight of what is being included in our indirect costs.
That's the big question, how do we get answers?
Who came up with the formula for the hydrant credit?
I don't know where that came from years
ago, yeah, years ago.
That's probably 20 years ago that came up. I don't know where that came from, but
That came up years and years ago with
could
a
see-
different superintendent.
10 years, 12 years of, 12 years of numbers that show up. You get a little bit more credit each year as a hydrant credit.
Yeah, I'm just curious as to how they came up with that number. I know
I-
probably 20 years ago, we went to DPU and did one for a private water company, so Milford, and we charged the town, I think it was around 150,000 a year for use of the hydrants. So how they came up with this, I'm curious.
I don't know where that came from.
I mean, the fire department using the fire hydrant and one rookie fireman shuts a valve quick and blows a water main, it just cost us more than this fee.
It's
No
never
doubt.
been revamped at all from way back.
No
then.
doubt. But I don't know, okay, so where does,
And I mean, if they're breaking everything down as to, you know, salary, percent of pension, insurance, health, dental, life,
Right.
Medicare, pensions, all of that, I
Well-
mean, if you look at the hydrants, I mean, you can go through and see what the value of the hydrants are, I mean, I know the last bill I got for having one from an insurance company, you know, we just had a contractor come in and repair it, cause it was an insurance job. It was almost $15,000 to replace one hydrant. And then how many hydrants do you have in town, do you know? Probably three or 400,
187, yeah.
that's it. So if you just factor in how much the hydrants cost, how much it costs for each one, if you base it on a percentage the way they are, and then maintenance, spare parts, valve exercising, flushing, you know, all the stuff involved in that, and the man hours it takes to maintain the hydrants so that they have them available for fire protection. I can certainly say there's a lot more money and effort involved in the hydrants than half of what they're charging here, so.
okay.
Who do we ask?
I have asked the treasurer collector before, and he didn't really give me an answer. Well, it's two positions,
What's two positions, the treasurer?
treasurer,
collector?
and there's treasurer responsibilities and collector responsibilities, and they're
There
separate.
is, but
Two
It's-
separate,
but it's still one person performing,
yeah, but he's doing two jobs and he get paid two salaries. for the
but he's
job.
not getting paid two salaries, he's not
I'll
getting
say
paid
if
100.
If he's making 198,000 a year,
Yeah,
so it's
99,000.
199,000.
Twice.
so-
Yeah,
We're paying twice on the same salary,
yeah.
for one person. And then we're paying for an assistant in each one of those offices as well.
Yeah, the salary should.
Somebody
be
brought up the,
split or
you know,
something.
yep,
I mean,
Right.
that'd be like us charging for the hydrants to say, all right, we're gonna charge you for hooking up the street sweeper, so they owe 15,000. And then we're gonna charge you for the fire department, so they owe 15,000. And then if they're, you know, washing something else out, they, you know,
The way it's printed, it's double dipping.
Right.
it sure is. That's been a question of mine for years, I haven't been able to get an answer. I asked it of the town administrator, and he said he didn't know.
and again, the town administrator is
That's not
also,
his-
is also the
that's not his
personnel board,
calculation.
is he not?
What's that?
Is the town administrator also the personnel
He is the
board?
personnel.
And is the personnel board, is that a stipend position that he gets for that, or is that on top of his salary, or is the personnel board duties included in his 128?
I don't know.
So that again would be same instance, you're paying for treasurer, collector, now you're paying for town administrator and personnel board being the same person.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, they put the same number there twice,
That's for the treasurer collector, but
Yeah.
I'm saying
Yeah,
that, you know, you've got,
it just seems like they should have split it in half, right?
right, so the treasurer is, you know, 49,000 or whatever, and the collector is 49,000, so
Yeah.
you base your percentages off of that, but,
To me, the only way you have a counter against this, you'd have to have someone with municipal experience, a CPA, look at everyone else's line item and come up with his own deduction. Cause I remember way back, even with that hydrant credit, there was a fellow, Wes Gardner or something, remember that name,
Yep,
George?
Yep.
And he tried to propose that in front of the selectmen and virtually got
But
ridiculed.
who was it?
common
Wes
sense,
Gardner, he was involved like when this, when the enterprise funds went into place, when they were broken off from
Was
the
he,
tax records, like 20.
Was he,
25
He was a consultant.
Consultant,
was
yeah.
it Russ or Doug?
Wes.
Wes.
Oh, Wes.
Wes.
I
don't think he's
I knew
around.
it
Wes.
Doug Gardner.
Yeah.
Wes
no.
Gardner, I don't think he's around
And his
anymore.
proposal was just ridiculed by the selectmen at
So,
that
I mean,
particular time.
this is already through the budget process. So, I mean, these numbers are in our budget. However, there are some strong questions, and I would like to get them answered for,
So I don't know that's it's an accountant that you would have go through this, I think it would be more of an auditor.
Yeah.
Someone with experience, municipal experience.
But is there an assistant treasurer and an assistant collector? Or is that
there
again,
is now.
so you have
there's-
two
there's-
separate assistants?
There is someone who sits in each one of those offices. Is that correct?
Yes,
They're both considered assistants?
yes, believe so.
Okay.
but the treasurer collector, what's he making a year doing both jobs?
99,000.
Right, so they're putting that salary in there.
They're putting that
twice.
salary in twice.
Right, and we're
Yeah,
paying
A percentage of it.
45,000 of the 99.
We're paying a portion of it both, twice. If you look at it,
You're paying 31,000,
on water department,
32,000.
it's 17,000 for treasurer and 26,000 for
Right.
collector. Then you go over to sewer, it's 17,000 for treasurer and 16,000 for collector.
Yeah,
So you add all four of those up, you'd get approximately $76,000 or $77,000 of a 90. That includes health, dental, Medicare, and pension and all that. But basically, we're paying 75%
of the 99.
of his salary.
Now, when we do our
And we have
quarterly
to fight it to
billing,
get our bill. to
we
get
pay
our-
But
for
you
all
but
that
you gotta look at all the
ourselves too, right?
numbers.
By
You gotta
using
figure
the,
what your
the
percentage
other
is,
people.
you're paying of
We've
all
had
of
that
them.
argument, they're not
Because
helping
it's
us out
salary
100%
plus
on our quarterly billing.
fringe.
Right.
What's that?
When you look at a salary, it's salary plus fringe. The cost of a position is salary plus fringe.
Right.
So you gotta look at all those numbers.
Yeah, but-
Salary is 90-something thousand, then you add the fringe and.
Yeah, but, sorry to interrupt.
Now,
Go ahead.
then you take that, and that's the percentage.
You got health and dental between the two of them, it says 3,000 and 4,000, so that's 7,000. I don't know why there's two different numbers for health and dental, for treasurer and collector, because it's still the same person. Unless they divided his benefits across the two lines.
Well, they would
And
have,
then under
but that's the reason the salary should have been
Medicare
divided.
is 200 and 300. And then pension is 1,051 and 1,617.
They're inconsistent with their logic.
Yeah.
If they've divided the salary, they haven't divided the salary, but they divided the fringe.
Right, it looks like it.
So they were inconsistent with their logic. That's the first thing you gotta get them on, is how the hell can you be 100% of salary in both positions? That's question one,
Well,
right?
Does the town offer dental?
Yes, they do.
But is it,
I mean,
is it 100%
between the-
employee paid, or does the town contribute?
Is it 73?
Probably, yeah.
but-
That's unusual, a lot of times dental is like 100% employee
Yeah, we know.
funded.
Yeah, a lot of places do, but most places,
But, and
Between the treasurer and the collector, the town's saying they're spending, $198,000, which they're not.
No,
For salary,
They're
right.
salary. They're charging us on the 198.
that's right,
Mhm.
that's right.
That's
That's
been
why
like
it's
that for years.
inconsistent, see? They're not. They should have taken the position
What
And
is the
have to.
maintenance?
You can have to.
What's the maintenance and assistant maintenance?
and then they should have taken the fringe.
There was a maintenance worker at
And
the town
have to,
hall
but
and
they
an
didn't.
assistant, but there's no longer an assistant, there's just a maintenance worker now.
So we're being,
So again,
so,
we're being
so the
charged.
assistant maintenance
No
What
longer.
is an add-on too,
The
And that's
position was done away with.
41,000.
is done away with, and that's,
Did they
That's
incorporate
another-
that money into the?
Mr. Chairman, I
that's
think we need to-
another, let's see, assistant maintenance, that's 1,300 there, and 1,300 for both departments. So there's,
Mr. Chairman, I think we need to address this now, whether it solves this year's budget,
like,
but next time it rolls around, it's gonna get snowballed through again. And, oh, well, these are the numbers.
okay,
We gotta address it with somebody, whether we go to a selectmen's meeting and open comments or whatever, but
can ask to be put on the agenda for the next selectmen's meeting.
The highway department does the maintenance in the building now, right?
Just one gentleman.
Well, who's in charge of this? Is it the treasurer collector that's
Treasurer
doing this?
collector puts the numbers together, but the budget is ultimately the selectmen's responsibility.
Right.
Is this like, okay, that's it, that's who you go to.
can we, consensus to go to the next selectmen's meeting?
I'm surprised they get away with it in the audit.
Okay,
That's what concerns me is, would this pass an audit?
When's it, do we know when the next selectmen's meeting is?
they just had one yesterday, but they've been having them pretty much weekly because they've been meeting with the FAA doing the final budget.
Perfect time to go?
I believe the next one's May 2nd.
Can we plan on going to that?
Can you put us on the, have us
Post
put
this-
on the agenda?
And post us a meeting for that night? And can we get this? Cause we're gonna have to show them, we're gonna have to give them handouts and,
Mm-hmm.
Did the Department of Revenue look at this? Ever look at anything like this? Probably not, huh?
I doubt it. I know, what's it, Scanlon? Isn't it Scanlon that comes
He's
in and does the
auditor.
audit?
He's the auditor,
Does
yeah.
the audit every fall, is it?
August.
It's in August, okay. Okay.
Yeah, so there's a few ghost salaries in here, put it that way.
Yeah, assistant maintenance and personnel
Like I say, you
board,
get two
neither one of them
maintenance- two
exist.
main- Yeah, like I say.
And how they determine that,
I just don't know if that got rolled into the maintenance position. No.
No, because there were two separate positions and his is, they totally did away with that second position.
and then the selectmen, to be honest, I mean, what do the selectmen do specifically for
No,
the
no.
water sewer users? That wouldn't be considered a taxpayer function. I don't know what they do.
Approve the budget.
I mean, you're talking about, third down. Well, yeah, actually, no, $5,000, 5,000, yeah, 5,200 for each. I mean, how are those numbers calculated? Okay,
send us notice when the next meeting is, and
Yes, I will
It's May
email
2nd,
Michelle.
yep.
I'll email Michelle tomorrow for confirmation
Okay.
of when she can put you on.
okay.
How much did the selectmen make?
They each get a stipend, it must be $1,000, because it's $5,000.
They get more
Salary.
in health insurance than they do in salary.
Oh, yeah.
And are they entitled to a pension?
Anybody who is salaried, even if you're on a stipend, is entitled to be in the pension plan.
Yeah.
I know I was.
See, there's a.
As a call firefighter, I was not, but as an elected water sewer commissioner, I was.
And they're entitled to health insurance too.
Selectmen are, yes, they're the only people. Some of them don't, most of them don't take advantage of it, but it is
We're not
there,
technically
as
allowed
a
to do that.
benefit. And, you know, I don't begrudge them that. It is a busy job.
No, I was just curious, cause it's 5,000 is the total, but then our share of 5,000 is 52.
52 twice, because you're paying for it on water and you're paying for it on sewer.
Right.
And 50, it's the same thing, so we're paying $10,000 on 5,000 worth of salary. But it's the fringes that we're paying a portion of as well.
Right, but if you look at, even adding up the fringes, I mean, what's the total dollar amount there?
For selectmen, 42,000 for insurance. 4,600 for health, dental, life, I don't know what the hell that means. Then $7 for Medicare and $44 for pensions. So, I mean, whatever that, there's a $42,000 in total insurance cost. But then there's a health, dental, life, I'm not sure what that is, that's 4,600. So there's 48, 46, 47 grand right there. Added on to the 5. Yeah, a lot of questions.
That's roughly 10%, right?
We're paying 10,000 on 5,000, we're paying 20%. Water department
Yeah, I
pays
mean,
5,000.
Yeah.
Sewer pays 5,000.
Drainage department.
Okay. Policies and procedures, what this meeting is actually set up for. We just spent an hour.
We usually go 3 meetings
Yeah, no,
Only got so many free nights.
I won't even bring it up for a vote. Nope, not happening. So we have, we asked at the last meeting for the full-time crew to come up with a template. And we have 4 of them in front of us. So, I guess we go with the shortest one first.
So we can accomplish something?
Oh, well, no, we got 5.
No, you have 4. One is.
Oh, meter repair comes twice, okay, there's 2 pages.
Because one is one that was adopted in 2019 and one that you currently are writing.
Right.
So I just wanted you to see that one.
Yep. Okay, what's the preference for what you wanna deal with first? Doesn't really matter to me. What's most important?
We're gonna do them all, aren't we?
Yep. All right,
Well, can I just
Service leak
throw
clause?
one thing out?
go ahead.
Sir? I would start with the turn-off policy, because turn-off runs through a number of these and is different.
Okay,
So if you establish the turn-off policy, the others should follow suit when they talk about.
actually,
turning
all
off.
of these, every one of these can result in shut-off.
That's right,
Okay.
but
But I think we
go to
already
the
have,
master one,
we already have a shut-off policy, right? That's
Right.
not included in this.
Right, it's different. These are,
These are for specific instances, like customer service leaks.
yeah, but they're not the same,
That's what I mean, this isn't the same as our shut-off policy.
but they don't follow the same, like, the list notification of people, they're all different. 3 policies, 3 different lists.
Right,
Right,
Seems to me like you should be
consistent.
consistent so that you've got the shut-off policy and everything else runs a duplicate after it, really, right?
With some regard to like backflow's a little different because they're allowed 14-day periods. And
Yeah,
that's
that-
what kind of makes it a little different.
Backflow and cross-contamination is based on
Yeah.
state law, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but the notification thing.
Yeah, so the backflow and policy, I mean, the first thing I would see is, says the purpose is to
Okay,
protect
well-
the public water supply. I think you probably wanna just look right at the backflow regulation, and I think it has a statement in there what the purpose of that is, and it's to protect the health and,
Health and safety of,
you know, of the
General
consumers, so.
Alright, we're doing the service leak policy, or we're
the
doing the?
backflow.
Don't matter, so start off with
We'll start with
backflow.
backflow. She brought that up. All right, so we wanna start with the purpose being, what's in the state regulation?
Public potable water supply of the town of Dudley from the possibility of contamination or pollution. No, that's an old one.
Service leak, meter repair, meter pit policy. Oh, okay.
Okay, so that first statement is pretty.
I would say you probably, I mean, the purpose, you can almost go to DEP's regulations.
Okay,
310 CMR 22.22.
that's what I was just reading.
Okay,
So it says the purpose, the department's purpose in establishing a comprehensive distribution protection program is to prevent the contamination of drinking water to the last free-flowing outlets or consumers' taps. For this reason, the department strongly advocates the elimination of all cross connections. So I think I would kind of more go with that.
Yep.
That statement, that it's,
and actually state the CMR.
right, and I would state the
Per
CMR
CMR.
here, right? Per 310 CMR 22.22.
Do you want the whole purpose or, just
They don't actually, well.
the installation of backflow prevention device does not eliminate cross connection, the installation,
So I mean, you can,
put the whole thing?
I would take parts of it, I probably wouldn't use their, like, for this reason, the department strongly advocates, I mean,
Right,
Yeah.
you could put, you know, that we're advocating to eliminate all cross connections.
mhm,
So the installation of backflow prevention devices does not eliminate a cross connection. So I wouldn't really say that. So you could put that, the last part, that the installation of backflow prevention devices is a protection solution when replumbing or repiping is not feasible.
okay.
Towards the constant push off and establish sentence on the bottom. The bottom, C,
Let's-
two,
Okay. I was gonna suggest that maybe we, take
Yeah.
this paragraph by paragraph
Okay.
rather than jumping
Okay.
around. But we're, we've got do we have the purpose pretty much set? Add the CMR and kind of feed off of the states.
Yeah, that's the source, that's the
That's,
respective source.
we're basically adopting state
Mm.
or placing state regulation into our policies. Okay. All right, and then the policy section.
So was this, I think the intent of this originally was that we had an instance where someone wasn't allowing us in to
push offs.
test the device. Because, I mean, theoretically, you don't need a policy for backflow and cross connection, because the regulations are already in place. So all we have to do is say, you have to follow the regulations of the state. So I think the intent of this policy was more, you know, the purpose of the cross connection and backflow is as stated in the regulation, but I think what we were looking for is, we need to have something in the policy to say, if you don't allow us to test and maintain the minimum standards per the 310 CMR, then we have the right to immediately terminate service, shut you off until you come into compliance.
Some of the problems we're having though, before we just can get into the building to determine what's going on there, even if they've had a few good years of good backflow, and all of a sudden, we can't get in, somebody's pushing us, like say, pushing us off all the time. We just wanted to make sure that.
That's what I mean, so the intent of this policy isn't to determine what the rules and regulations
No.
per the state are.
What,
We just
just to
say
give
that-
us some
Enforcement.
right, plus,
regulation, yeah.
we don't wanna go out and tick off everybody because we're doing something, we wanna make sure they understand where we're coming from, when we're getting pushed off, when we're getting delayed, when we're getting this, it's kind of to reiterate the state's stance and our stance, that we have to get in there and we have to do our job. So that's all we were looking for.
So I think the purpose of the policy is more so we state what the
CMR.
what the purpose of the CMR is, and our purpose of this policy is to enforce
For CMR,
the
such and such.
310 CMR 2222, and by all means necessary to assure compliance. So, and then at that point, we would get into the policy part saying, you have to allow us, we could give reasonable notification, we just need to come up with how much time we need to give them for notification to come in and test backflow.
It's
places.
pretty, it tries to be really strict, because it just about says at any time, but it wants us also to give the opportunity to get in there, or at least exhaust a couple opportunities. They could be on vacation, we don't know, whatever, it always seems to come up, and we don't have anything for it.
Right.
That, so I just wanted to cover all the bases a little bit, to make sure that,
You have the state regulation as teeth.
Yeah, but if you can't get into a business,
Sure.
just because they're away or something like that, and everything has been routine and great all through the years, you gotta kind of,
But if they're in violation, we're in violation,
Right.
but we don't know if there is a violation, because they say on their normal round, they're not there. So, like I said, and then then the guys catch up with them, and they're giving us a lot of flack about something else or whatever. At least they know if they wanna go, this is what we're basing ourselves on.
All of that other stuff is immaterial.
So-
We're there for a backflow inspection. If you don't wanna let us do the backflow inspection, we're gonna shut you off. Oop, off you go,
So I think the best
case closed.
I think the best avenue to take would be to say, we're required to do backflows per 310 CMR, or backflow testing. I'd probably put in there RPs are twice a year, double checks are once a year, minimum. And then just say that, we may come at any time without notice, and if
We
there's.
reserve the right.
Right, if
So
there's
we'll
no access, or if we are not granted access, our policy is that is considered a failure. So the device is failed because we couldn't test it. And then, per the regulations in our policy, it would be they have 14 days to fix the violation. And if they
Okay.
don't fix the violation,
So,
then
like
we
they
shut
said,
off
you
water.
can't just go in and all of a sudden shut water down when you don't know what the situation is, and you
But-
just ruined $1 million machine.
Right, but that's why I'm
Yeah,
saying,
but-
if you follow this procedure and say, it's our policy that if we do not, or if we're not granted access to test the device, it's considered a failure.
Yeah, we know
So
that,
we
but
fail the device, you
now
give
have
them
14 days.
notice,
Yeah.
and now you have
But
14
this also
days
adds
to
a little
correct
bit
it.
on the push. See, there's always, the problem is it's good when you're talking about it here, but it's different when you're,
Right.
it's different when you're out there and the situation is not as clear as you'd like it to be. And you don't, and it's just a normal miscommunication or something, or you're waiting or whatever. But if there is actual people starting the process of giving you some slack, giving you some trouble, you know, it's right there in clear and white, you know, we don't tolerate it, we can immediately, you know,
Right, but you
without
can't-
any more discussion,
But
whatever.
you can't pick and choose, so it's across the board, everybody's treated the same, and if our policy is, if we're not granted access to test, it's automatically deemed a failure. You have to follow your procedure for notifying, so I would say it should probably be certified mail.
Notify them they have 14
Notify
days.
them that you have failed your backflow device, and if you want, I mean, you can either give them the information that it's a failure because of,
Yeah, it's just-
It's a
denied
fa-
access.
failure by lack of access to the device.
right, and then it's just a matter of following the policy that you have 14 days to correct the issue. If it's not corrected, then we terminate service.
Okay, it just seems that, bullet number 2 under policy isn't complete. It says any building or residence with, and it lists conditions. What about them? It doesn't say anywhere in there what happens if any building or residence meets those conditions.
That's what I mean, so that should be any building or residence with a backflow,
Which requires.
What is a
not-
backflow issue?
Well, not single-family homes, certainly, commercial establishments, any chemicals being used.
But,
well,
Industrial.
Okay,
single-family
but it
homes
says
do
it-
fall under
says
the
that.
irrigation. If they have
Oh, yeah,
irrigation,
yeah.
they have a backflow.
Yeah,
it
but
So,
says,
We've had that issue with wells that it uses backup, the cross-contamination wells.
yeah.
okay, so, and then the A, B, and C, it just seems, I don't know if it seems wordy or it's, just not clear. And C, this is constant push-offs. What's constant push-off? Is that 1 time, 2 times, 15 times? What is constant push-off? That's too vague. It's gotta be specific. If we haven't gotten response, you're failed 14 days. After 14 days, if you haven't fixed it,
Water shut off.
where you can give them, you know,
Yeah, so constant push-off is, you know,
that's too vague.
well, that shouldn't even be in there, because it's not a matter of a push-off or not, it's just a matter of, we were not granted access.
failure to comply.
I think we
Simple as that.
can clean it right up and say, on this date, we weren't granted access, deemed a failure, send them a letter 14 days from, if it's April 1st, April 15th, your water's getting shut off.
Um, Okay, and bullet 3 says the same thing, it says the same thing. Any building or residence whose owner or responsible party denies access to the water department will trigger a 14-day violation period. Well, you just said what Bob said there, that just say it right at the beginning, you can eliminate
Yeah.
a whole lot of this. And then if it's triggered, you don't have to list A or B or C. You really don't have to list, you don't have to tell them what you're gonna do. All you have to do is tell them, they need to contact you to get a proper inspection, get it repaired, whatever, or 14 days time period, we'll shut you down. Period. And then you do it.
I don't
Well,
think
first
that's
try
right.
again to make final contact with a responsible party owner. Well, of course you would. You're gonna call them and say, hey, your 14 days are up, what do you wanna do? And if they don't respond, off it goes.
Who do you notify?
Water, okay, those people will be notified if water's shut off, that's by law, I believe.
Yeah, it's 14 days is in the regulation, I'm trying to find that right now, but
And then,
but there's a whole section in the 310C.
water turn on will be as soon as possible after the violation requirements have been met, after the violation has been repaired, and at the convenience of the water sewer department. If you're out in the middle of doing a water main break, or doing something else,
Or it's 2 o'clock in the morning.
or it's 2 o'clock, well, they're not gonna get it fixed at 2 o'clock in the morning,
No, but
but, yeah.
So, under that 310 CMR 22.22, number 4, there's a whole section on owner's responsibilities.
Hold on.
So I think you could almost
Oh,
cut and paste that. They're required to have a spare parts kit on hand and any tools required. Like I said, I would just go right to that paragraph. There's A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And it pretty much lays everything out there. It says that, you know, the owner of any cross-connection protected by double check valve assembly or RPZ, shall notify the public water system of all cross connections protected by a double check assembly or an RPZ, and comply with all necessary approvals and permits of the public water supply. There's another one that says, have suitable arrangements made so that inspections of backflow devices and cross-connection surveys can be made during regular business hours. So that covers they have to give us access. I probably wouldn't make it so vague where it says suitable arrangements. I would be more specific. It says they have to have a spare parts kit, provide necessary labor for inspections and testing by certified backflow prevention device testers or certified cross-connection surveyors. Overhaul, repair, or replace within 14 days of the initial inspection date and retest pursuant to, and then that gives you the section that the 14-day thing falls under. It's 310 CMR 22.13E. Any device which fails a test or is found defective. So that's where it states the 14 days. So I would, as we say the 14-day, it's not a 14-day violation. It's just.
You have 14
that
days to fix it.
You have a 14-day period, so so I would just put that, you know, basically that word, the exact words right there, and then put in parentheses that exact citation. Maintain on the premises complete records of all devices for the life of the said devices, including as-built plans and design data sheets. Maintain for 7 years the inspection and maintenance reports, forms for the tests conducted by the certified. So I think we should probably trash most of this, unfortunately, and I would just pull most of this stuff right out of the
Yeah,
regulations.
CMR. Yeah, I mean, the state's already created it.
Yeah, it's there for you.
Let them,
Right, so I mean, we can hit all their key points, and then it's an easily defensible policy by just pointing to the regulation, but the key point is that we would probably wanna add that, you know, non-access is
Non-access, yeah.
considered a
Yeah.
failure in our, you know, by us.
failure to be inspected
Right.
counts as a failure.
Right,
Yeah.
then you can point to
The other
those set.
owner's responsibility.
Right,
Right.
And do you want in there that certified mail notification,
I
it'll be
would say that it
notified?
should be certified mail,
Certified.
just
Thank
by
you.
our policy, so
Yeah.
that they can't say, well, I never received
Yeah.
that, I didn't
Right.
do that.
Okay,
Probably return receipt, so you know
Yeah.
somebody signed for it. So I think that's the key thing, is that we're considering it a failure, and that therefore,
If it comes back.
in the end result, it's gonna say that, you know, any violation of these justifies us to shut your water off.
If it comes back, certified comes back unclaimed, that's, receipt saying we notified you.
we did our due
Yeah.
diligence. That's the first one,
Okay,
the backflow.
ready to move on to the next one?
Yep.
Okay, meter pit policy?
That one Brian had put in earlier this week, and it's a very rough draft.
Yeah, it's very rough draft. I mean, the purpose of why do you need a meter pit needs to be put in there.
So,
You know,
yeah,
you-
We're just trying to standardize the.
For.
It was just to
for-
get
yeah.
information
Okay.
to you guys.
So you wanna continue to work that one then, and,
so,
It's 100 feet.
No,
Okay.
actually, he wanted to bring it forward for Bob's input,
okay,
is what he wanted.
so I think
okay,
part of the problem isn't so much this as the the policy should basically just be anything beyond however many feet you determine. I think 100 is probably reasonable.
100 is.
If your service extends beyond 100 feet from the main, then you have to put a meter pit in.
Yeah, this shouldn't even really have to be a policy. The reason is they come to the board explains what's gonna be done, and they explain they need a separate meter pit.
Yeah, but if you, you're gonna get somebody that comes in and says, well, why do I need to pay for a meter pit? I'm only 110 feet. So you need a policy that points to something that you're the same for everyone. You know, you can't,
on 100 feet.
you can't say, well, that one's only 110. We'll let them go at 110,
So 100 feet?
if-
And then I'd like a specific size meter pit.
So that's the next thing that I was gonna bring up as part of this meeting is, that's a whole different thing, and it's kinda more involved in these policies, is you need standards and specifications, which I know we don't have. So standards and specifications is, you say we allow Eddie Clow hydrants, this model, this make, you usually pick 2 or 3 hydrants that you'll allow in the system.
Meter pit must be X
A
size.
meter pit must be a Ford meter box, X model, whatever, so that they're all standardized, they're the same, you have the same access, the same tools to get in them, the same pieces if you need parts or repair pieces. But you need to decide which one you want. So, go look at all of them, I mean, you can specify it's American made, you know, whatever you want.
That's what I actually gonna do tomorrow when I went to do samples to check them out, so I can get a size with the manhole cover type that we want, that's adequate for what we wanna do, and make it
there's-
standard.
There's different things, like,
Good thinking.
I know you didn't go to the DCU show, but they have, you know, you can specify that it has to be these certain covers, cause they have covers that you can mount your readers right to, or your radios to, so that they're already cut out for it, so you can mount it in there and have it inside and still get a read if you're radio reading. So you wanna look into all that stuff and get the specific model and make and everything that you want, but you need to account for any sizes, so if you might have somebody that has a 4-inch service, you know, you can't say it's gotta be this model Ford meter box, cause it's only good for a 1-inch, so just make sure you cover those bases when you decide it, but,
Bob, I didn't know they made them, what are they made of, fiberglass?
yeah.
Oh, so it's not a concrete monster, you gotta,
No, so they make Ford, the Ford ones are like a fiberglass, or the heavy composite plastic.
Mhm.
I think, and there's different grades, if you need one that's, you know, something that you can drive trucks over.
yeah,
or- So,
okay, that's
but the
good
way
to
they're
know.
designed,
Cause I mean, in the past, it's usually been a 36-inch or a 48-inch.
yeah, but they
cylinder,
put a lot
yeah.
a lot of effort into the design of those,
Mhm.
cause the meter pits, you would think they're gonna freeze, cause you open the cover, the meter's right there.
Mhm.
It's like, well, it's not 4 feet down, but I guess the way they're designed, at least that's the way it was explained to me when I went through looking at them, is the way it's designed, it goes down, it's open on the bottom,
Yeah.
and the heat from down that low
Yeah,
keeps
yeah.
that warm
The earth,
enough that, so, like I said,
Pretty
I
good.
would just do a little research, or
Get the right one,
you're the superintendent, put it on one of your,
compared to
Like these
everybody
two.
else making
Not
a
me.
concrete one.
get you,
I mean,
get you some information.
You're not
on
as
that.
lackey.
no, good enough.
So while you're on that, I would also recommend that you also investigate something that you can put the meter and a backflow in case you get into an instance that you wanna have a containment device. So a containment device is basically you're protecting the entire building. You don't care what they're doing inside there. If you have a customer like you were having an issue with, and you just say, all right, fine, we're gonna require you to put in a meter pit and a pit for a backflow device. That way, we don't have to get access to them, and we're containing it here, we're protecting the water distribution system. They may be poisoning their employees internally, but you have a device to protect the water system. So, I would just say, look into that as well while you're doing it, but I think overall, we need to have its standards and specifications up front, you know. I don't think you use copper services, but, you know, me personally, I don't like plastic pipe in the system for mains, I know you have it, but I would standardize and say class 52 ductile iron, cement line, you just figure out the stuff that you want in your system that you're not ending up with going out and repairing all the time. And if you're gonna allow plastic like C900 you don't want, go with the C909, cause C900, when you put it in and you start to bury it, if you didn't have it perfectly bedded and it bends, if you go to tap that, it blows up. So you can't have any deflection or anything on a C900, but C909, you can put pressure to it and it won't blow up when you tap it, so. It's just things like that that you wanna avoid, having crap in the system that you guys are always going out repairing because some contractor came in and took the cheapest route possible because you don't have specifications that excludes that.
And so that would help, like, when they come into the office and they're asking me what, and I'm like,
That's what they usually ask. They'll come in and do you have your specifications?
yeah, I could have,
Yeah.
okay.
So if you have that, you hand it to them and say, here you go, here's what we allow.
And you can get on, you can stay on for that.
I will.
But
That I
that's-
will.
You should have everything in there, right down to your curb stops, corporation stops,
Any product we use.
anything that we use and anything that a contractor coming in to do a project,
That we wanna standardize.
right,
Pipe hydrants, all the way down to brass goods,
right, and.
Like ejector pumps?
or even like. well,
For
the
sewer,
side,
yeah,
yeah.
all that,
You know?
Chuck,
okay.
you need a gunny.
Huh?
You need a gunny.
Oh, yeah. Ooh.
But I know it's more money, but you're probably better off specifying USA made.
That's what we try to,
It's more expensive, but like a valve box or a curb box or a gate box, they'll last way longer than any of the India or
Yeah.
China stuff that you get. But it's a little more money up front, but you're not digging it back up to replace it later, so.
But it's not, contractors come in, it's not a money we're spending.
Right, but typically if it's in your specifications, you're supposed to follow them as well, so.
Yeah, yeah, no.
But,
Okay.
I would think we should.
but anything that we're doing that's on a big scale, like all these projects, they require American made anyway. So any of the SRF, or
Mhm.
if you get any grants, MassWorks, EDA, they all require
American
the
made.
American
We
made.
should be buying American made stuff.
Right. Like I said, the quality's just that much better anyway.
Make that a motion.
So-
Well, sometimes you can't.
So, my first recommendation would be to have Brian or Jen quickly scour some other towns.
Yep.
Southbridge has a decent set of specs. Uxbridge, I think, has a good set of specs.
Does
Oh,
Douglas
yes.
have- does- what,
Yeah, well, the problem is half of my stuff is backwards from yours, because you guys are backwards, you
you're backwards.
get righty to open. I mean, who says that, you know? But anyway, all the stuff here is open right. You guys have Eddie Clow, I have different hydrants, so it's really a matter of your preference, and it's, pick the one you like most, try to go with it, and that way you're standard, you only have to supply a certain amount of.
Bringing a fire truck to your town, put any of your hydrants.
Yeah, you can go on, George's gonna be sitting there, we can't put the fire out hydrant.
okay, we're good with that one? Customer service leak policy. This is for leaks beyond the town curb stop, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
So any leaks on the other side of the curb stop is the customer's responsibility.
Yeah, that's kind of peculiar to determine who is responsible.
And you don't
I mean,
have to
they own it.
determine, it's
Okay,
the town, I mean, we're
Well, yeah.
not, we're not insured to dig on private property, that is on them. We own up to the curb stop, which is typically at the, or supposed to be at the property line.
the number two line doesn't need to even be in there. That's something we would do after the fact if, you know, for repair. That doesn't have to be in the to me, that wouldn't be in the
That's-
policy. That's something you would do as a matter of doing business. That's not something that would be spelled out in the
Right.
policy.
So that's something that you, as a superintendent, can look at and say, well, we know this is gonna be difficult, you can't get to repair this right now, and that's a judgment call on your part to connect house to house with an above-ground line. That would be a whole different policy, I think, than this. So if you,
Well, all it says is, try to determine, well, leak, but tie in is only a standard thing we do to avoid, somebody's leak is causing massive amount of damage.
Yeah.
Try to tie it to another adjacent house. This ends up being if we can't tie into a house, like this other customer.
that's what I mean, so number two should be stricken from this,
Yeah,
cause that's a judgment call on your part, and I think that's another entire policy that, you know, if we do, that's something that you need to determine what your policy is. If you connect house to house because you have a problem that can't be fixed, whether it's a blizzard or
Yeah, how long?
Whatever it is.
How long do you allow that, and
And do you put in a spool piece, take out the meter of the customer that you connected to, so they're not paying for water that somebody else is wasting? If it's the middle of winter and you got an above ground line, typically you have somebody, the house that you're running to, they open up a faucet and just let it run, so you don't freeze the line. Or you can have mulch, you pile mulch on it, mulch decomposes, so it heats up, so the line won't freeze. But those are all things that you need to identify in a separate policy that would be, you know, connecting a house-to-house connection.
Is that a policy, or is that just a work standard? That's
Well,
not something you put in a
Well,
policy
no,
book.
we would,
but if somebody comes in and says, hey, why did you allow Joe to hook up to Tom temporarily, but you're shutting my water off and not letting me hook up to somebody else?
Is somebody
You know what I
else
mean?
available to be
But
hooked up
that's
to?
why you need a policy to identify
Okay.
if they're within so many feet,
and if.
who's responsible for the.
Yeah, and if they do
Okay,
connect
All
to
right.
another house, we have to have a policy how it's connected.
That's what I mean, you
Yeah.
gotta, you know, it has to be service line, you can't just use garden hoses to connect house to house. So that's what I mean, that's an entirely different policy. You need to specify what's allowed, how it's allowed, what the process is, who's paying for all the materials. You know, if we're supplying them, you know, so, I don't care which way you go, I'm just saying you need to spell it out. Cause you can't tell one person, oh, don't worry about it, we've got 500 feet, and then the next person, they're 50 feet away from their neighbor, and they say, oh, well, you gotta pay for all that.
okay,
So you need a policy that says this is our standard
okay.
practice.
All right. Line number 3, again, there's words that are doubled up there. Cannot be jumped into, cannot be jumped into.
Sorry, I got distracted.
Yeah, that's fine. But again, I don't think that even needs to be said. The customer will be provided 14 days to make arrangements for repair and notify the water department, period.
Well, you might wanna have something in there that, you know, it could be causing a more severe problem.
It could be, yeah.
So you can't just say they're allowed 2 weeks. If it's flooding their neighbor's house, or it's icing
Well,
an
that's when
entire road up.
you add.
That's what I
would
mean, you gotta add something in
You'd add a
there.
condition that, at any, when you get to the most severe situation, you'd add a line into that says, at any time, at the water department's discretion,
We feel it's a hazard.
do, yeah,
Yeah, if it's a public safety or,
public safety or public health hazard.
so I would say, you know, that you may be granted up to 2 weeks to come up with a solution. Unless it's a public safety or causing a hazardous situation. And I wouldn't put that if it's reported, it's just if it's identified, whether you find it or it doesn't have to be reported
Right,
as a leak.
once a leak has been
It's just
identified.
if a leak has been identified.
Okay, final notice, okay, if, you know, I don't know how to,
So yeah, you need to spell out that you'll be notified, so
we just digest this a
we
little.
should notify them if we find out that there's a leak.
Right. So
And
you've
that,
got-
that could be through a leak detection program, if we have somebody out doing leak detection and they find it, you know, it's not that it was reported, it's identified as a leak.
So you got 2 weeks, and then you've got, you know, if after 2 weeks, another 3 days can be granted before shut-off. And, you know, like 6 and 7, again, I don't think 6 needs to be said. I mean, that's just internal practices.
I'm still stuck on the 2 weeks, though, I don't know that you should say that they have 2 weeks. Just for one, it could be a violation of our backflow policy, because if they have a broken line
Right.
and they have a fire and somebody pulls, now you're sucking groundwater into the system, so it could potentially be a cross-connection issue.
Well, that's why something needs to be put in there to state that at any point, at the water department's discretion, shut-off can be immediate until repairs are completed. Due to the severity of the leak or potential public
Potential
health.
contamination.
Right.
Potential public health or safety, standards, or I'm not sure the words.
And if you shut off a service so that they can repair a leak, do you charge them a shut off? Because you have a fee for shutting people off, right?
A fee for turning them back on.
There's a fee to shut them off and a fee to turn them on. But obviously, if they have a big leak, they're gonna need the water shut off. So is
Sure.
that, so theoretically, you're shutting the water off for them, that should be charged.
And to turn back on or just for shut off? Both?
Well, you gotta get it turned back on.
I know, I'm
If-
just making
if
sure.
If they wanna leave it off, I get,
To me, I would say that
Yeah.
if you're going to shut it off because they have a contractor there to fix it, you shut it off and then turn it back on, charge them the fee. If you go and shut them off because they failed to fix it, you go down and shut them off, charge them to shut it off, then you charge them to turn it back on, because it was because it was
right. So
two
that's,
trips, a scheduled thing, I mean,
but that's why I
you
asked the
give them a
question,
break,
because
you give them a break.
in my opinion, if we tell them you need to fix a leak, I mean, we're losing the water.
Right.
That's a source of revenue, so
Sure,
there's a benefit to us to shut them off so that they can repair it.
right,
But if it's shut off for not scheduling to get it fixed, then that's a different story. But those need to be spelled out. Like I said, I don't care which way you go with it, just,
Okay.
to me, it seems like you can waive the shut
right,
off fee.
the shut off fee will be waived if you repair it with.
Properly scheduled repairs in conjunction with a scheduled repair. If it's in conjunction with, hey, you haven't done crap, it's been 2 weeks or 2 months and we're still leaking, and you still haven't fixed it, then, you know, you're gonna pay to have a shut it off and turn it back on.
And then, I don't know if you wanna try to account for in the policy that, you know, sometimes when you have a leak, you don't know whose side it's on. So I'm sure you've had instances where your shut-off valve doesn't work, your curb stop.
We have to redo it, we have to, if it's close by or undetermined at the valve, we have to dig it if we can't determine it.
But that's the point is if you can't shut it off, cause normally you shut it off, if it's still leaking, then obviously it's on our side. If you shut it off, it stops, it's on their side. But if you can't shut it off, how do you determine who's responsible
We
to fix
can't,
it?
we have to dig it ourselves to
That
fix
would be our
it.
dig.
It's at that point.
So if you dig
But
it,
you would dig it anyways to
but that's,
change
Well, no, sometimes they're at the flare, but sometimes the rod's bent up or whatever, the whole box is destroyed.
and you can't
We
shut
can't
it
get
off.
on it. So at that point, if we're gonna dig it down to find out the leak, we're gonna dig it and fix it.
Right, but
mean,
you're gonna fix the shut off.
Yeah, we'll fix the whole,
Yeah.
the problem right then and there.
Right, but what's your policy on if you dig it and you fix the shut-off valve, but the leak is still on their side?
There's been never a policy on that, it's just the fact that we ended
So
up
I'm
doing
saying
it.
that
and-
that's what you need to identify in the policy as well, is if we can't shut it off to determine who's responsible, we'll dig our side. If you're gonna dig your side, I would say you replace main curb, get that done, you put a new curb stop, and at that point, we're still not insured to dig on private property. So your job ends at the curb stop, and then they need to hire a contractor to finish.
To go from the curb
That's-
stop in, right.
Oh, yeah, well, they'll be, we always say, if we find something wrong that's gonna be a problem for them, they're gonna notify us, say, you better dig your side.
So
we're
sometimes
gonna
it's
have a problem.
advantageous to tell them, hey, we're gonna dig this up on this day, you may wanna have somebody lined up.
We've done that
So
before,
that
too.
while we have it open,
Yeah,
they can just
it
continue
all depends
there.
on what we find, and right away, you know, or something looks big or bad, then that's happened before.
But you kinda wanna account for that in the policy, to say, this is what we do, if we can't shut it off and identify who's responsible, the default is, we'll fix our side so that we can shut it off. And then from that point, if you still have a leak, it's your responsibility, but you just need to kinda have that laid out, cause you're gonna run into that instance. And the purpose of the policy is to try to capture everything so that there's no questions as to who's responsible for what. So there's an awful lot of days lined up in here, though, that,
Yep.
you know, you got 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 days, 3 days, it's.
But if we put in there that at any time we have the right to shut off on it, if it's a hazard,
Right.
I think that negates the 2 and 3 and 2 and, you know, all the days.
Right, but if you, like I said, DEP will consider a broken line a cross connection. So if the service at any time drops below 20 PSI, that's a cross connection hazard. So if you say 2 weeks and then 3 days, now you violated your cross connection policy that says it has to be repaired within 14 days.
So just take out the 3 days and do the 2 weeks, well, specifying up to 2 weeks unless it is deemed blah, 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 blah.
You've got 2 weeks to make arrangements. You know, if your arrangements are gonna extend longer than that, you call us, well then,
That's what I mean, that's
we
when-
can work with you.
That's when you set up a temporary service.
Yep.
You know, we shut it off at the curb and get a temporary house-to-house service or whatever you need to do.
Right.
And then I would also probably add to that, if they're doing a service repair, that might be a time that you wanna get inside, check the meter. You know, a lot of times you have, positive displacement meters, the wobble plates. So you'll clog a screen or something when they're cutting lines, you get dirt in them, cause you're usually working in a mud hole. So you may wanna get someone in to inspect the meter, take the meter out, check it, make sure, whatever.
Usually we'll put a brand new one if it needs to have one done.
That's what I was gonna say, if you're at that point, you check the age of the meter, if it's beyond whatever, you replace the meter. So that's something you typically wanna get in, and often that's where you'll find you've got a T before the meter, and then you've got an irrigation system, you know?
Okay.
But that's what I do on things like this, we go in and check the meter, change the meter if we need to, and we also look for sump pumps to catch things like that.
That's where we catch all the ones, even when they were installations, no, that's before they caught a few.
Yeah.
So, we'll get that one back again then. Okay, and then meter repair notification policy. Are we all set with that?
What's that?
We get some changes?
I believe so, we got a lot of edits.
Get some edits, okay. And then meter repair notification policy.
So you have one, and then the second one is one that was adopted back in 2019.
Oh, yeah, look at those names. Oh, 2019, yeah, we just did this, that's right.
See, I just did that, but I wasn't here for it.
No, 19, yeah.
No, that was
you
just
replaced-
before I came here, yeah.
You replaced Fred
Nope, Fred was here when I started, I replaced Scott, the car.
Karchik, okay. Okay, on that line 1, I would just add the word water next to the meters, just because. Service and the Dudley Water Sewer Department is the only entity who is authorized to work on, service, and replace water meters. Or town-owned water, department-owned water meters. So something, because I've got a gas meter in my house. Not that it should, that's apples and oranges, but just to be more
So
specific.
if they have sewer they have the option of putting a meter on,
Not anymore. Oh, sewer only?
right, not an exception meter, if they have sewer only,
Yeah,
they have the option of paying a flat rate or
putting a
putting
meter
a
on.
meter, so do we call that a water meter? I mean, I know we're,
I'm still gonna list, I'll say water sewer meter, just to,
okay.
cause some
Yeah, it's
people
still a water,
consider.
because it's metering the well water going
The
into the house,
And
right?
well water,
That's what I'm saying, I don't know if we're calling that a water meter or a sewer meter. I know we're measuring water, but it's only for sewer.
We consider it a sewer, like, especially when we do change outs, it's listed as a sewer meter.
So
But
that's,
it's not metering sewer, it's metering.
it's not, that's why I'm saying, if they're
Right.
calling it a
But for
sewer meter
our-
though, in
There's a reason
other,
why we
The-
differentiate between the two.
Only authorized to, we're the only ones authorized to do any of that to Dudley Water Department owned water meters. We retain ownership of all meters.
I'm just saying that if they're calling it
Right.
in another policy or something else, a sewer meter, even though it's on the water line,
And
Yeah.
it's the sewer department that goes out to
Yeah, I
the
said
sewer
they
meter,
agree
it's
that
not
one,
the, so
Okay.
that's why
that's what I'm
we're,
saying, I just
All
don't
right.
want you to say water meter
But you call
specific.
it a
if
sewer meter and somebody's thinking that it's got sewer, it's
So,
sewer.
but like you said,
But you'd
water
ha-
slash sewer meter,
and you'd be surprised how many people call and say, I have a sewer meter.
right?
Okay,
So, that, people who don't
All right.
understand the complexity.
all right.
And do you wanna call it initial tagging, or do you wanna put initial notification?
Yeah. First notice door tag, that's the blue one, correct?
Mhm.
Yeah, I got one of those. And I knew better, I dealt with that before I got a second one. Initial notification.
We send out the certified mail after the tag?
So it's the initial notification, then we wait 2
It's
weeks.
just a door tag, yeah.
You get 2 weeks to call. If you don't, then we send a certified notification.
So then they,
Can't say they didn't get the
right, but they get 2 weeks on the tag and 2 weeks on the,
Second notice.
Yeah, this is just to
That's
to
4 weeks.
repair a meter.
Yep.
To repair or replace a meter. This isn't. Yeah, it could be
It's also-
quicker.
but it's also to repair a meter that maybe is not reading and we're not collecting revenue from the, so we're actually looking
Yeah.
at 4 weeks.
If it's one that's not reading correctly, during my meter repair during meter reading,
Yeah.
they'll persistently go to that house. That's that's a little bit different. I don't wanna, they'll hound that way, I don't
Right,
know.
but I
Alright,
know,
let me ask-
I know what
I'm
he's
getting
saying.
at, so, some people, if their meter's not working and you're billing them based on their meter reading,
Mm.
so you may wanna add something in here that says, you know, I mean, I don't think 2 weeks is a ridiculous amount of time, cause
No, I don't
we could
either.
go 3
No, but
months
it's
without
two,
noting,
it's
noticing.
it's 2 weeks with the tag and then another 2 weeks with the certified. So we're looking at 4 weeks before the,
Sometimes there's a
Right,
little
but-
delay even for us with no meters available, we're waiting and stuff, so that's really not a lot of time.
So I mean, the 2
It's
weeks
not-
or something, I mean, there's probably
Yeah.
meters that you had out there that weren't working for 5 years,
Yeah.
but
Absolutely.
I think the way you would
We're catching those
discourage,
now.
the way you would discourage it is if we don't gain access, your bill will be estimated. And if you pick an estimate number that's on the high side, you know,
Well, the
then-
four, the average use for a family of four or six or
exactly.
whatever.
So if you have that standard use for this,
Yep.
that may be like someone that's cooperative, you would use something like that, but someone that you
Let me tell you,
repeatedly tried to get in and they deny you
You wanted to
access.
bill me for that amount of water, I'd be all over that, because
That's
that's
what I mean.
that's a hell of a lot more than we're using.
But that's what I mean, if,
but I just don't understand, like, couldn't we tag them and do the certified at the same time?
It's
So
costs a
It's,
fortune.
yeah,
I was gonna say, you
That's-
get into a
that's
big
crazy.
expense
No.
when you start doing certified a lot, if you have 100 customers that you have problems with
we
the
just
meter.
tagged 100,
Oh, you did, okay. I take
100
that
houses,
back.
100 certified letters, that's,
I take that back.
you're gonna cost
Okay.
It's 100 headaches ready to come in.
$300 or $400 in certification.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it will probably end up being about half that I have to do certified letters for.
Okay, no, that's perfect then.
Once again, the list is different for the shut-off paper notification.
Right.
Right.
That should be consistent across the policies.
First notification, door tag, second notification is certified mail. We'll wait for 2 weeks. And then the third notification will be delivered by a constable. I think he's sitting over there, one of them sitting over there.
So just, I know this was, I just wanna give you guys, I think delivery for a constable runs about $50 a piece.
Mm-hmm.
So, just as a, this is what, if this is the procedure that you want us to follow, we're gonna be, certified mail is about $8 a piece.
Right.
So at 50 at $8, that's gonna increase the postage, just as FYIs.
Yeah.
And then if we say I get 25 back, then I'm gonna have to do 25 notifications by constable. That's my only concern, is the cost of everything.
Can't we add that to the bill?
That's why I'm,
Okay, so,
Be reimbursed for these fees.
that's why I'm bringing it up.
delivered by a constable, and that will be, we can put in that, constable delivery charge will be billable to the user. The third and final notice will be sent to the business or residence indicating the need of water sewer department to serve all attempts to gain access to this point have failed. Water sewer department now has a right to shut off water service at said establishment in 14 days of receipt of this notice. The owner and all associated costs with these notices be billed to the customer, owner of the establishment, of the property.
So to
So
address,
that's the constable right there.
right, but I was gonna say, to address the Colonel's concern there,
Yes.
you could almost just put in there per shut-off policy. You know what I mean? That way you would address it, you've already written that policy and the procedures there, so.
And so just, it should be the Board of Health, the Building Department, the Fire Department. Do you notify selectmen and collectors?
No.
Or just those three are the
Well, you
main?
notify the
those are the ones-
selectmen only because they're gonna be the first ones getting the
Yeah,
complaint.
I have no problem.
No, that's,
To be honest, the Board of Health is the only one that's required to be.
Yeah,
Right.
but I do it so they know what, in case they call us, what's going on here?
Well, the selectmen will get pissed if they don't get notified.
well, but
I'm
but
just
it's
saying-
not their system. 9498008.
By rule, we have to notify the Board of Health that we've
Right.
shut off water
Right.
for
That's it.
That's the
public
only,
health issues.
But their answer can be as simple as 9498008.
8007,
7, I'm sorry, okay.
please.
What's 8008?
I'm not
Sewer
sure.
department.
Used to
Oh,
be
yeah, it's sewer.
department.
Okay,
Because-
so,
But it doesn't come to me, it would go to the shop.
oh, let them deal with it. No, but I mean, really, I keep telling them that if they get any call from someone
shop.
and they don't have an answer,
It's the-
call the water department. It's our issue.
Down where, like with Mike and Timmy,
Yeah.
that's 8008.
That wasn't done before.
Yeah,
No.
we're 8038
Yep.
for our shop.
Okay, so in any
It
case,
used to be the office, sewer office though.
Probably, and it got transferred.
Alright.
water service, the said establishment. Okay, so I mean, basically, you're getting through this for meter repair, we're getting to 6 weeks before we shut you off.
Just,
And if they haven't responded within 6 weeks, well, again, sorry, we've done due diligence, we've done our best. There
So
will be
the-
the three, reconnection fee will be, I think that, rather than putting a number in there, reconnection fee will be per current,
well, this
fee
says there will
tables.
be a $300 fine and water reconnection fee.
Right.
So that's,
Oh, $300 fine, okay, all right, never mind. And a water reconnection fee, okay,
Yeah, that's the table we come up with.
okay.
so I think, again, this is
I
similar.
read that as being fine and water reconnection fee, that was one fee
Yeah.
that covered both, so
But this,
$300 fine in addition to the water reconnection fee per, whatever, I don't know.
but the shut-off policy, you know, at this point, this is shut off for similar to other reasons for the shut-off policy, so instead of this $300 fine and water reconnection fee, it should essentially
Being the shut-off fault.
point to the shut-off policy.
Will be shut
And
off.
just follow that procedure.
And, you know, put any kind of fines and reconnection.
Because I think we have all the fines established and
I'll double check, but I'll make
all
sure,
that.
yeah.
But the reconnection fee, I mean, what's the connection fee?
I think it's,
It was $50 back when they were doing that.
Yeah, that's
That's-
what, that's
Turn
why.
on and turn off.
That's turn on, turn off, but this says a water reconnection fee, I mean, reconnection, what's your connection?
You're not
$500
we're not reconnecting at that point. All we're doing
reconnection
is-
fee for a reconnection of an active account, property
I'm
of
just
that's
putting a new line back in, that was capped off or
Right.
discontinued.
not capped off. No, this is still where they're still paying. It says,
For the shut off?
If they're
Oh, just to
replacing-
connect that shut off into the
If they're
si-
replacing their line, right, is that what?
so to connect their line into an active
That's
curb
why I'm
stop.
questioning it, I'm not sure what fee you're talking about, I mean,
No.
a
I just-
connection fee, I mean, we have connection fees, what's that, 2,500 or 200?
Yeah, we're not doing a reconnect fee, well, all you're doing is
I'm
turning them
looking
off,
at
turning them on. Turn off fee, whatever that is. You said it was $50, I think
I
we
believe
we
that's what it
increased that.
was.
I thought we increased that a few years ago, again, around that same time
Was
period.
it 125 or something?
I'll bring that, I'll check on those.
On
Yeah,
some of
just-
those
just
fees,
make
when
sure
you
we're
have like
consistent.
buildings torn
Oh,
down,
yeah.
and they still got the water service out in front, and they don't wanna pay that quarterly fee,
You'd have to cut and cap, that's
And you cut and
different.
cap,
you
yeah.
know?
And that's what I was getting at, is this considered that, but we're not digging nothing up, we're not,
Right.
that's, I just wanna be clear on
Clear that up.
Yeah.
what that is.
Okay, so you'll have those all out to us
Absolutely.
by the end of the week?
Oh, definitely. Yeah,
So, yeah, I mean,
it's all good.
we can bring those back to the next,
Yeah.
our next policy meeting, whenever we,
Oh,
Did you have a preference on notifications, George?
As far as,
Are you fine with those three, or are you?
Yeah,
do you-
yeah, I
Do you
mean-
think the selectmen need to be notified?
I do. I would like to keep them, because Michelle needs to know, for if any phone call comes in, she'll at least know.
refer them down the hall. That's my opinion,
Yeah,
I'm just one vote.
Good neighbor policy,
I
it
was
won't
just gonna
hurt.
say that.
But that's what I mean,
You know,
it's-
not
it's-
gonna
It
hurt.
is a good
Just
neighbor policy,
Let
but
the office know it, because
Especially when
everything
we're going to
flows.
them to discuss,
You know?
the Rex, we wanna be cordial.
But I mean, I think you should probably have the conversation with, I mean, you go to all the selectmen's meetings anyway, just at the next one you go to, bring it up and say, hey, we're revising some of our policies, one of them came up. Do you feel that you need to be notified, or if people call, you just wanna refer them to the water department?
Yeah.
Just get their opinion, and
they should refer to the
if
water
they
department.
wanna be
anyway.
notified, you know, I don't see an issue with
You know,
notifying.
they're taking on something they don't need to take on.
Right, same with the
To be
police
honest.
department, I mean, I know in my town, when we shut people off, they call the police department, you know.
Police department says, you have to call the water department, yeah. They don't deal with.
I'm just saying, if,
In our policies, we got notice to the fire department, the health department, the selectman's office, the collector's office, and the building department.
Yeah, these various policies.
For various I mean, but it's not consistent.
well, sometimes it
You
depends
have
on
three or
what it's
four
for.
in each, but if you're shutting somebody off, and that's what these are referring to, as shut-offs. The shut-off should be consistent with who you're gonna notify in your shut-off policy, right?
Anytime someone's shut off, it should always be the same people are notified, because
So then who do we wanna
the
notify?
intent behind it, Board of Health is always notified, and that's per regulation.
That's
so that-
correct, right, I understand.
Fire department has to be notified too. And
Right, so the fire department, because they're gonna respond to someone if you shut water off and they have, whatever machines require water for health reasons,
Yeah,
and they get called, they need to know that the water was shut off, and that could potentially be.
If it's a business, yes, if it's a residence,
that's
What
why
difference
the
does it make?
health department's
they
got.
the health department needs to know, but fire
Well,
department,
I don't see it,
they're not tying into, they're not doing anything, but,
I
yeah, I
don't
mean,
have, I don't have a problem notifying
we can let them all,
everybody, just,
we can let them all know.
yeah,
It's-
it's,
Some of them might not wanna be notified, though, that's what I'm
right,
saying,
Yeah.
so
yes.
just get from the selectmen who, if they wanna be notified or not.
Yeah,
And-
that's
and-
true, I mean,
And do you need to
Doesn't hurt to tell
notify
anybody.
the collectors on any of them,
I don't see it.
You know,
or
The only reason you notify the collectors is because you billed them for something and you need a commitment to go to the collector treasurer so that he knows to look for that money
Yeah,
for an accounting purpose.
right.
One thing on this home, figure residential homes now, medically, you're gonna have to know what's going on in that property before you ever shut water off. You have home dialysis, all types of health issues, and, you could injure someone by shutting the water off without knowing the circumstances of what's going on in the house.
That's something that, there's, other than a service break, there's nothing that,
And there's no requirement on our end to do that.
there's no, everything has ample notification. If you get a notification and you know that, if I get a
Yeah, I
notification
know,
from the
you're
electric
notified.
company that I haven't paid my
Yeah.
bill and they're gonna shut my electricity off, but I need my CPAP to sleep at
Yeah.
night, that's on me to let them know, hey, I've got medically necessary
It's also-
equipment here in the
It's
house.
good for us to know our
That's
customers.
the reason why the policy says, and the law says, you gotta notify
Gotta
the
give
health
them
department.
Right,
That's for preservation of life and limb.
right, because if we shut it off, I think, what, was it 4 hour? I don't know what the hour is, but
Yeah,
they're not allowed to stay in that house because it's not
Nope.
inhabitable without running water, so.
Right, but, I
That's the
mean,
reason
we
you
could
notify them.
theoretically get a call from the health department, so do not shut off that place. For medical reasons
Or
or whatever.
they
No.
should be calling us and letting us
That's
know
correct.
at that point, no?
No,
The
they
Board of
can't,
Health-
like I
the-
said, the purpose behind it is we notify them that we're shutting the water off. They go there and say, you have to leave.
right.
You cannot stay here, it's not up to
Evac.
the standards.
It's not habitable.
It's not habitable.
Habitable.
Yeah,
Okay.
But there is also requirements on if it's a multifamily.
oh, yes.
So there's different requirements, and you have to notify the tenants that you're shutting it off and give them the ability to, if it's for non-payment, they can pay the bill and
Yeah, we've had
reduce it-
Deducted from the.
reduce it from the
deducted
rent.
from the
Our
rent.
landlord.
But we still do need to get the language for that, because when you notify the tenants, you're supposed to put specific language on there.
Okay, I'll look into that.
And then, okay, so we'll see all of those again.
Absolutely.
Got some good activity on, some good movement on all of that. There's one other page that's been added here, I had Jen add it. What was her name?
2.
Two. I went to the, just because I went to the planning board meeting last week, and, they were using tablets, and I know the selectmen have been using tablets. Just for folks to think about, do we want to eliminate 2 meetings worth, that's 2 meetings worth of papers? Do we want to look into going to a a paperless system? These are the 3 tablets that are being used by other town boards to go paperless. It's just something to think about, something to, if you want to explore it, if you want to say no, that's fine. We can explore it again at another meeting, but it's just, I just wanted to put it out on the table to
How much
to
do you
explore.
spend on the copier, John?
I'm so
How
sorry,
much do you spend on the copier?
you know, there's a
Well,
lot of,
it's just,
there's
and
a lot of
I-
copying.
I've got a stack, you know, of course,
Well, I
some of
know.
it's from Ty and Bond, but I've got a stack of papers this thick on the back seat of my car.
Me too, I got
From-
the same-
from
I got
meetings.
the same pack.
It just, could that be better managed electronically?
All right, well, you think about it. Did
We can
you-
think about
I see, did you ever get a laptop?
No, not yet. I'm not geared for it yet.
Well, we
I'm
did
still-
receive 1 or 2 with the asset management plan, did we not?
We got
Some
tablets,
The tablets.
and one's already going,
That's
the
right,
other
we did
one's
discuss you getting a
Right.
laptop.
being,
yeah.
being,
Yes. He's gotta be
So has the town,
willing and able to learn how to use it.
the town hasn't standardized any of this?
It has not.
And-
But I know and I found out afterwards that the planning board was using, the selectmen upgraded to a larger tablet. So
They
the
got
planning board
leftovers.
is using
Mhm.
the selectmen's, hand-me-downs, which is fine. But these are just the 3 tablets that were floated in that program.
One question is, are they connected to the internet, to the, you have drives, public drives on the,
I would imagine they'd be set up with
Yes.
cloud accounts and everything else,
so if they're
There's-
set up that way, then there's most likely a monthly fee,
a fee, yep.
so that's another thing
Well,
to
that's,
consider.
again, that's all stuff to consider, I just wanted to put it out on the table and let folks chew on it and consider what the,
I mean, I know one of the
do a
things.
cost-benefit analysis.
Right, so one of the things that we did in Douglas was, we're switching over to try to avoid email, like, we email a lot of these documents and email, you know, the bid documents or
Right.
plans or any of that stuff, they're big files.
Right,
Um,
and you
there's-
download those onto your phone and you can't see them.
Right,
I
but-
can't see it.
But what they're doing, like in Douglas, they're creating shared drives, so,
Yeah.
like, we could have a drive that's just water sewer.
Like a Dropbox
And then
where,
there could be
Yeah.
a drive that has access just to water and sewer and the treasurer collector, so financial documents can be shared on those drives, and you can limit who has access to them. But that way, they're not emailing documents all over, and things like,
Could we e-sign vouchers that way?
no, I don't think you'll do
I don't-
vouchers that way.
Could we, if we have e-signature capability, we could e-sign vouchers, we could have vouchers moving in a day's time rather than having to wait. We'd never have to see Jen again, once a month.
Don't get Jen all
Twice a
excited.
month.
I
You'll have these on order
Yeah, sure.
tomorrow.
which ones you want?
Can
We'll make it work.
you do this job from a
She might even
remote?
pay for it.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, motions were made,
Second.
all in favor? Okay.
I don't know, if we have that policy book.